Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here, Totem Pole Nation. We are live, and I have a huge announcement today. Right now, joining us via cell phone, Gary Michael Cappetta, the world's most dangerous ring announcer. He's an announcer, a voiceover, a screenwriter, a stage performer, a teacher, and my favorite. Gary, how are you doing today, sir?
Hey, I'm doing pretty well. Thank you for the invite.
Oh, without a doubt. I'm so glad we've got to contact each other. Let's get into it right now. What is going on with you? What kind of projects do you have going on? Is there anything we can promote for you right now? Because you are the GOAT, and we just want to hear what you got going on. I definitely want to get into the book, but what's going on with you right now, sir? I believe you're in Florida like I am.
Well, I guess you're talking wrestling-wise. I maintain my social media. I've got a huge following on Facebook. People can follow me on Facebook at my initials, GMC, number 4 real, GMC for real, or Gary Cappetta on Twitter or Instagram. June 4th, I'll be in Tampa. Actually, it's a suburb of Tampa. It's a WWF Legends convention. There's another convention in Jacksonville. I think it's the week after that. I might be attending. So, I pretty much just take it each day as it comes.
Oh, that is awesome. I'm definitely going to try to make that Tampa. That's just right across the bridge. I'm over here in St. Petersburg, Florida, Barry Horowitz neighborhood, pretty much. Let me ask you this. That name right there, the world's most dangerous ring announcer. Rumor has it James E. Cornette might have given you that. What is your connection with Jim Cornette? Do you have anything to add to that by any chance?
Well, yeah. I mean, I know Jimmy from first working with the NWA in the mid to late '80s, and then the beginning of my stint with WCW. He was there. In fact, when about 3 years ago, when I had my stage show running around the country, and we had a show in Kentucky. And Jimmy came out. We had lunch together that day, so it's always good to see him. I respect him a great deal.
Yes, sir. Can I ask you, Gary, where are you from? And if there's anybody that's watching that doesn't know your story, where are you from? And how did you grow up, Gary?
I'm originally from New Jersey. Grew up in northern New Jersey, then moved to the Jersey Shore and central part of the state, and lived in New Jersey until just a couple of months ago.
Awesome.
And now I'm in Florida.
And how did you become a pro wrestling ring announcer, Gary? What's the story behind that?
I was in college, and I was writing for one of the magazines, and I went to a show one night in Wildwood, New Jersey. They didn't have an announcer, and I mean, it's so simple. I volunteered. And, I had no design on working in wrestling at all. I was just there. They didn't have an announcer. And, that summer, they had weekly shows in that venue, and Willie Gilzenberg, who was the president of the Worldwide Wrestling Federation back then, came up to me at the end of the night, and he said if I came back the next week and put a tie on, because that night I was a college kid, so I had jeans and T-shirt, and he said come back the next week and put a tie on, we'll put you in the ring. And that's what I did every week after that for the rest of the summer. And then at the end of the summer, Gorilla Monsoon called me and asked me if I would continue to work with them. So I worked with the what's now WWE for 11 years.
Wow. And growing up, me and Kyle, we always watched Gorilla Monsoon and Jesse Ventura. Then it was Bobby the Brain Heenan on USA when they had that show. And I mean, what a legend Gorilla Monsoon was. Can you tell us a little bit more about him?
He's the person responsible for me having a career in pro wrestling announcing. Wonderful guy. He was my mentor.
Wow.
And I didn't know him at all when like I said, it was just a chance that I started to announce. But he took a liking to me, and he became like a big brother, and after 2 years of announcing at local shows, he called me up and asked me if I wanted to start doing the WWE TV show. And I didn't know at the time that he was the producer of the show.
Wow. So actually,
he put me on TV for the first time.
Hey, Gary, I heard that. Is it true that he called your mom and your mom said, you know a guy named Gorilla?
Yeah. I just moved out of my parents' house. I just graduated from college, had my first job. And so, yeah, she gave me a call. And we're talking. And all of a sudden, I noticed like there was a strange like tone to her voice. And she said, "You know somebody by the name of Gorilla?" Because I didn't know his real name. I mean, they didn't let me even into the locker room for a good 2 years.
Wow.
That was a closed sanctuary.
So you had to earn their trust. I mean, what was it that earned their trust? Was it just the time that you spent, or was it something that you did that they were like, all right, man, this guy's one of us?
I don't know. I don't know. It was very gradual. You'd have to ask them. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know what all of a sudden. Just once a month, Monsoon would give me my dates for the next month. And this one time, he just called me into the locker room to do that. And so I don't know what changed.
Yeah, so Gorilla Monsoon must have seen something in you. Like he saw something in you that you didn't see in yourself, and that's pretty cool. It's motivating.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, they saw that I was serious. They saw that I respected what they did, and they saw that I wasn't, I wasn't clowning around. I think one of the things Monsoon liked about me was that I was short. So I made everybody else look taller.
Yeah, that's important.
And I was conservative looking, so I made everybody else look crazier.
Man.
But letting me into the locker room had more to do with, they just began to respect me.
Yes, sir. And respect is something that is earned. And during this time that you were announcing for pro wrestling, you were teaching. You weren't full-time just an announcer. You also had a job.
I taught for the first 15 years that I announced.
Wow.
So from 74 to 89, it wasn't until I started announcing for WCW full-time in 1989 that I left teaching. Yes.
So your students must have really loved that. I mean, you were a wrestling announcer and their teacher. Do you have any stories about that in kids?
Yeah, they used to have me see me every day in class and then watch me on Saturday nights.
Wow.
I didn't. I'm learning more now because I have former students that now have, their own families and they're, really established, and they get in touch with me. And
yes,
I get
sir.
more of an insight about what was going on in their minds back then because, they ordinarily didn't bring it up. I wouldn't let it distract from what we were doing in class. Every once in a while, I tell them, a story here. So I really don't. I'm not sure what they thought. I guess it was just a matter of who it was as to what they thought. Different things.
Yes, sir. So after talking to some of those people that are now grown and have their own families, can you share with us some things that they told you?
It was just, I just think they weren't comfortable. They didn't. I kept my wrestling announcing life and my teaching life and my personal life all separate.
Yes, sir.
So, I just think they didn't know what was allowed, so they did nothing.
And this was in North Jersey too, right? Where you were teaching?
Well, I taught in different parts of the state, but mostly at a place called Christian Brothers Academy in central New Jersey, Monmouth County.
Okay, right on, right near Monmouth University. Now, Kyle, would you like to share with Gary what your first job was? Because y'all have a kind of connection, Gary.
Yeah, my first job, Gary, was actually there's a theme park called Paramount's King's Dominion, and what is it, Sandston, Virginia?
Yeah, it's
but yeah,
north of
King's
Richmond.
Dominion. I worked there at a big theme park, and I did my research, and when you graduated, I think you guys kind of went into that kind of business. Is that correct?
Did your dad own a theme park?
Oh, yeah, that was from when I was a kid.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
He owned an amusement area in the Jersey Shore in New Jersey. I mean, I started working at the concessions there when I was 10 years old.
Yes, sir.
So I've had my myself in the entertainment field all my life.
Yes, sir. Is that near? I mean, I'm from Richmond, Virginia. I've been to Atlantic City. Is that near Atlantic City where the horse would jump off the pier and everything?
It's an hour north.
Okay. So what are the similarities between, your dad owning a theme park and then going into, pro wrestling? Are there any similarities other than it's entertainment, but is there anything else?
Well, I mean, there's so different, it's, you do learn, when you work at the park. I mean, the public is kind of nuts. You have to deal with a lot of, some ignorance, and most people are nice, but there's some real Looney Tunes.
Mm-hmm.
So you do learn how to deal with the public. I guess that would be the biggest common denominator.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's the thing for me, Gary. I was a cotton candy man, so I was walking around the park with the big boards of cotton candy, and it was just super fun. But yeah, you'd have knuckleheads run over there and try to jump up and steal your cotton candy and stuff like that. So, but I loved it because you got a lot of steps in, walking around a beautiful park, and just seeing all the people so happy and how they could be, and it was just a lot of excitement every time showing up. It was just a very, very exciting time, and you get to meet people from all over the world. So yeah, that was a great time for me, for sure.
Gary,
and full circle. Back then, the amusement area was right over the ocean, and every summer as a kid, I lived at the beach, and now in retirement, I live at the beach.
Nice.
So,
What is it about Tampa? Like, I was listening to something about The Rock. Why is Tampa the mecca of guys that were in the wrestling industry? It seems like all wrestlers live in Tampa. What is it, Gary? Or is it just coincidence?
I don't know. It's it's also common for it to be the winter stomping ground of circus performers
Mm.
in Gibsonton and Sarasota. I don't have the answer to that question. I mean, we can say weather, but there's great weather in other places too. It's not centrally located in the country to make it easy to drive or fly from coast to coast. Honestly, maybe the legend of the CWF Florida office in the very beginning brought people to the area.
Yeah, tell me about that, Gary, because I'm not familiar with that. What exactly is the CWF office?
The Championship Wrestling from Florida, when it was a territory.
Yes, sir.
Tampa is where Eddie Graham's headquarters
Mm-hmm.
was. So a lot of the wrestlers lived in that
Okay.
area. So other than the fact that wrestlers, from the old days, traveled through and wrestled in Florida and liked the living, and then just returned when they had a choice as to where to live.
So you were a full-time teacher and a part-time ring announcer, and then most people who are in teaching, because I'm a teacher and a high school football coach, it's comfortable, but you made the decision that you were going to leave teaching and chase this dream of basically living a dream of being in the big time, being in the show, WCW. And what was that like, and what was that decision like? That you had to leave your your routine of being a teacher to full-time ring announcer.
That's a very good question, because what you're doing is you're giving up security.
Yes, sir.
You're giving up health benefits. You're giving up a pension. And quite honestly, at the time, if Vinny had asked me to work full time for the WWF, I would have turned him down, because that was a family business, and up until that time, wrestling territories, I mean, they didn't have full time positions, and there was that were secure for any length of time. It was who knew what would happen, and who knew what would happen with the WWF. But it was different with WCW because it was owned by a corporation that was very well established. TBS, CNN, the Ted Turner family of companies. But then I was further bolstered when I went to resign my teaching job. I was told by the principal that no, we don't want you to resign. And I said to him, I have to do this because this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. Like, there's no other time to go into this industry where I can feel secure enough. Like, it's not going to get any better than this. And he said, okay, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hold your teaching job for a year.
Yes, sir. You got sabbatical.
Wow.
You can take a year's leave of absence. And if that doesn't work out for you, I'll have your job here for you.
Mm.
So, I mean, you couldn't get any better than that.
Yes, sir.
Because I was entering WCW, and I was able to feel more independent. And it wasn't as if, well, if they fire me, I won't have any job. I had something to go back to. So that helped me to be a better negotiator with my contract, and, not worry at all, just to take care of myself and not be under their thumb.
Yes, sir. I understand Ted Turner owned, I guess it was WCW. Then they changed the name from NWA to WCW. But you said that you would not have worked for WWF and Vince McMahon because it was a family company. And why is that? Is it because it was a family company and you saw no way to move up? But why would that be?
look at any of the. It wasn't a swipe at that company. Look at any wrestling territory. How much advancement would there be? Like where, as a ring announcer, like what would it would be different if I was, in management.
Yes, sir.
There wouldn't be enough to support me or for me to make any kind of advances financially.
Okay, I think I see your point is that if you go into ring announcing for Ted Turner, at least there's other companies that you could have worked for Ted Turner if WCW, if it didn't work out, correct?
Yeah, and the chance that WCW was going to go out of business quickly with the finances of Ted Turner behind it, that was slim.
Yep.
You never knew. And also, when I worked with WWF, I was mentored by Gorilla Monsoon, and he had a falling out with the McMahons, so I wasn't, on their favorite list anyway. They weren't, they were never going to ask me to work full time for them. So that that probably wouldn't be even an option.
Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, hey Gary, I'd watched an awesome podcast with you and Jim Ross, and if you could, you kind of told a story of where you kind of went in the office, and you guys unfortunately weren't making much at all, but you kind of had asked for a little bit of a bump up. Would you mind sharing that story?
You mean with McMahon Sr.?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I had I guess I had been working for them for about 5 or 6 years, and I got really sick, and I couldn't teach, I couldn't announce. I was bedridden from September through January. And I would lay there and I, would say, geez, what would I do? What would I have been doing with all this time? And it was only then that I realized how much time I was putting into announcing, at night and on weekends. And I thought, I think for this to make it worth my while, for me to spend so much time, I think I need to be getting paid more. So when I came back, I started asking for raises. And when I went in to see McMahon Sr., which was in this little dumpy box office where we did the TV in Hamburg, Pennsylvania, I thought I was ready for with an answer for anything he could have said to turn me down, except for what he said. And because you also have to remember, nobody ever asked for a raise. Unless you were a headliner, you were just happy to be invited to work for them. But at that point, I knew how much time I was putting in, and the initial thrill was, I was past it. So I explained it to him, and he looked at me and he said, I can't afford it. And I think I was asking for $25 or $40 more. And that was for the TVs, and that was we would do 3 weeks worth of television in one night.
Wow.
So maybe I wanted to, maybe I was getting $40 and I was asking 75 or something like that.
Yes, sir.
And I was speechless, because who could expect him to say that? I can't afford it. So, but at the end of the night, he paid me what I asked for. He didn't pay me. He had his payoff guy. He always got paid in cash there. So in the envelope was the full amount that I asked for.
Wow.
And every time I worked there, I got that higher amount. And the story the important part of the story is that's how, and I don't think it's changed much. That's how WWF and the McMahons dealt with you. They would never, ever compliment me on my work. They would never say, "Good night, Gare. That was a good night, a good show." Ever. He could never say, "Okay, I think you deserve it." He would never do that because they always wanted to control you. And the fact that I had my full-time job, I think they didn't like that because I was independent. But that's what the whole thing's supposed to be. You're an independent contractor. But they want you to have that classification of independent contractor, but they want you to be treated and act like an employee. The big difference.
And that's because of the money, but they don't have to pay tax or they don't have to pay benefits because you're an independent contractor. They're just paying you cash. And I mean, it's kind of interesting, you know, his psyche, Dad McMahon saying, you know, I can't afford it, but he still gave it to you. So that shows like, it's kind of like one of those deals where it wasn't, he made you think that you weren't going to get it and he wasn't going to tell you were going to get it. But it showed that, you know, he was in control of you. And like, So
yeah, but you know what? At the end of the night, it sent another message, which was he doesn't want to lose me either.
Amen. Yeah, because you brought value to his show. You know,
just couldn't say it because if he had said it, then I'd be making other demands. I mean, that's the way they think. They think of people in the worst natural way. So that's unfortunate.
Yeah. Would you have ever thought that when you worked for Dad McMahon and McMahon Jr., that it would have became what it did?
Never. I mean, you couldn't envision any wrestling organization becoming what WWE has become.
I guess it would be like asking somebody, did you think that Amazon was going to be Amazon when he was working out of a one office, operation?
It's like having your favorite hot dog vendor down on the corner, and that's where you go to lunch every day from work, and then all of a sudden he expands across the country. It's something we never have thought that, even though the hot dogs were great.
Yeah. So when you were still a teacher and a ring announcer, what are some of your best memories, of working for all these different, because you were working for multiple different organizations and federations. What were some of your best memories when you were still a teacher doing it? Like you were like a moment, like you were like, wow, I always remember this, or wow, this is big time. Any of those moments when you were still teaching?
Well, in different decades, there were different moments that were special. Like I said, I kept my teaching separate from my announcing. The first large arena that I ever worked was the Philadelphia Spectrum. First time I was on TV. Well, the very first night that I stepped in the ring.
Yeah.
The headliner was my childhood hero, Bruno Sammartino.
Wow.
So right from the first night, that would have been, that's a memorable time.
What kind of guy was Bruno? Did you ever get to meet him and form any kind of a bond with
Oh, sure.
Wow.
We turned, into friends. I worked with him for so many years. For just about all of my WWF years, and maybe he left 3 years or so before I did. Then I saw him again when he did some work for WCW at the pay-per-views. And then I saw him again. He came in and did some work with Ring of Honor when I worked with Ring of Honor in the 2000s. And we would see each other at conventions here and there. So yeah, he's a very good man.
Yeah, most people that when they get to meet their heroes, they're really disappointed. So that's really good to see, you know. And I've heard that too, that he was a guy that just generally cared, you know, about the business and the people in the business, and that's pretty awesome. I love the fact that, you know, that you had that relationship with him and you got to meet him on a personal level.
Yep, it was amazing.
So when you went to go work full time with WCW, I mean, is that like leaving to join the circus? I mean, you're basically like you're on a show and you're going from city to city with these guys. You know, what was that like?
I loved life on the road. I had more freedom than the others because I had in my contract I had that I would travel alone, and the
so you weren't on the bus with them. You weren't on the bus. You weren't in the
smart
trucks
move.
with them.
Yeah,
Man.
Stay out of trouble.
I was in the bus with everybody in Europe.
Okay.
Not in the States.
Why did you make that in your contract? Did you know that would not be fun being with those guys? Or you just?
I just know myself. I just know, and knowing the guys, I could predict what would happen. You know, I wasn't going to be a gopher for anybody. And I like my independence. And on top of that, the office also paid for all my expenses. So if you were a performer, they paid for your airfare and your rental car if there were 3 of you in the car. You paid your own food, you paid your own hotel, you paid your own parking at the airport, and all of that was covered for me.
Okay, good.
So my income was, it was gravy, you know, I had no expenses. And every once in a while I would have, I would want someone to share things with. And I would, ask a guy if he wanted to travel with me and, for a certain loop, like which would be for 4 days to a week.
Okay, a loop.
And I would share my expenses with him. So they liked, traveling with me because they saved some money. And I got to know different guys that way.
Who would you go on the road with? Who were some of those guys?
Knowing people in a group.
Kyle wanted to know who are some of the guys that you would travel with?
Mick Foley.
Wow.
I heard he saved every dime.
A few times. Well, yeah. Yeah.
Can I ask you about him? Because I used to watch Global on ESPN, Global Wrestling. It was the Dynamite Kid. And it was Cactus Jack. I mean, tell us, fans, what is he really like? I mean, not the character, but the real person. What is he like?
He's a nice fella. He's a gentle guy. He's I don't know. He's just a very nice person.
That's awesome.
Easy to be with, which is why we travel together more than once. He's a terrific guy. He's a lot of fun. That's very easy to do.
Yes, sir. I'm a fan of Andy Kaufman. And did you ever announce anything that he was involved with when he was wrestling?
No.
Okay.
Come on. Come here.
Yes, sir, because I just recently watched that movie again. And it made me think about it. What about Jerry the King Lawler? I recently heard he had a stroke. Gary, did you have any interactions with Jerry?
No, right here. Come on.
I don't think that I've ever met Jerry Lawler.
Yes, sir.
I mean, if I did, it would have been in passing at a convention. But I don't have any memory of meeting him.
Yes, sir. So how many years were you on the road with WCW full time?
6 years.
Okay, wow. So that was up until the year of 1989.
Well, it started in 1989.
Okay, so you were there. You were there from 1989 to 1995 with WCW full time, and I graduated in high school in 1996, and my mom had gotten me and my brother tickets to go see WCW in Richmond, and we were told that the guys would be down at the sports bar, and we got to meet all of them: Ric Flair, Bobby Heenan, Macho Man, the Giant, the Steiners. I mean, it was just a great time in wrestling. Who are some of your favorite guys that you got to work with that we would know, Gary?
Do you know how many? Any idea how many guys I've introduced over 50 years?
Yes, sir. Maybe your top three. Your top three guys that, like, man, these guys are awesome.
I don't do best. I don't do worst. I don't do most. I don't do least. I don't, because it's impossible. It's just there are just too many memories, too many people, too many places, and I can't narrow it down.
Yes, sir. Well, I totally respect that.
Because if I do that, then I'm leaving someone else out. So I'm not comfortable leaving anyone out.
Yes, sir. I respect that.
Hey, let me ask you this. Has there ever been another ring announcer that simultaneously worked for 3 major corporations? Because I believe you were at one time announcing for NWA, for WWF, and for AWA. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, not only there's never been any other ring announcer, there's never been anyone else, a wrestler or anybody who would ever have worked for all 3 at the same time. Not over their careers, but at the same time. So that one week I would go in and I would announce WWF show. 2 weeks later, I'd go in and announce an NWA, AWA show. 2 weeks later, all at the same time. It didn't happen for long because I put an end to it. But I hold that unique distinction.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. I know you had just, like, when you left WWF, you just kind of missed out on, they didn't get you for any of the WrestleManias, unfortunately, but that's when the pay-per-views really started jumping, just started going. And as a young kid, man, that was so fun if somebody's parents would get the pay-per-views. And Coach Taylor here, his dad would get it for us. And, man, I mean, it was like Christmas on that Sunday when we would watch those pay-per-views. Can you name some of the pay-per-view events that you worked, in your career that we would all know? A lot.
I did the first Super Brawls. I did first Great American Bashes.
Nice.
Ooh.
Halloween Havocs. There was one called Spring Stampede, I believe.
Starcade.
Yeah, I did a bunch of Starcades. I'm just trying to think of the seasons, going around the different months. Yeah, and all the the Clash of Champions in between them.
You didn't do any.
And then
I'm sorry.
For AWA,
I'm about to say Wrestle Rock.
3, and also they had Wrestle Rock in Minneapolis at the Metrodome. So yeah, there were a bunch of pay-per-views.
Were you announcing when the Road Warriors wrestled Baron von Ruski and Kurt Hennig, and Larry the Axe Hennig came into the ring and they beat Kurt Hennig to a bloody pulp, and then Road Warriors got into a fight with the fans? Were you announcing that match?
I have no memory of that.
Yeah,
no.
That's one of our favorites. The Road Warriors were our favorite tag team growing up. Do you have any memories of those guys and working with them?
Oh, sure. The Road Warriors were great.
What was great? What was great about them? Just their performance, or they were just great guys?
Both. when I knew that they were leaving WCW to go to the WWF, I knew that their days were numbered. And the last week, like midway during, I think Richmond, I want to say Richmond was their last WCW show.
Man.
Could have been Richmond and Norfolk. I picture Richmond. And so earlier that week, Hawk comes up to me and says, he says, we're having a party, a away party. He said, and I want you to be there.
Wow.
They knew that I didn't, socialize all that much. So I said, oh, well, we'll see. We'll see. So, and just about every night that week, he'd come up to me and said, oh, don't forget, we're going out. So finally, we get to the night before. I think we're in Philadelphia, maybe. And he comes by again. I said, I don't know. I'll probably, get on the road and, start traveling to the next city. No, we want you there. So I'm thinking, I don't want to go to that. I'm thinking to myself, I don't want to go to this big party. I'm not a drinker. And, but so finally I caved. And the last night that they were with WCW, Hawk comes up to me and he says, we're going to a restaurant and it's just on the outside of the outskirts of the city, maybe, and you follow us.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, oh, okay. And I'm dreading this because I'm thinking to myself, like how many state and federal laws are we going to,
a lot.
I follow him, and we wind up at a small Italian restaurant. And remember, it's late, so the guy's keeping it open.
Yeah.
I mean, it's after a show, so it's got to be 11 o'clock, midnight.
Yes, sir.
And this farewell get-together was Hawk and Animal, probably Precious Paul.
Wow.
I think Flair.
Wow.
Another friend of the Warriors. Maybe the promoter.
Wow.
And me.
Wow.
I thought I was going to some party, like no, it was just this quiet dinner.
Wow.
And it was really nice.
And what
the Goodfellas right there? Just the Goodfellas is what that was.
Man, that's. But what did that mean to you? Were they just showing their appreciation for you? I mean, because why do you think he did it? Why do you think he wanted you to be there so bad?
Once again, it was a show of respect. Hawk was never. He didn't express his feelings often. So this was just his way of. It was just his way of showing his appreciation. I remember once they wanted me to go to, we were in New Orleans, and they wanted me to go to, was it Bourbon Street?
Yes, sir, Bourbon Street.
Yeah.
Mardi Gras, Bourbon Street.
Yeah. And I just said to them, look, that's crazy. I have no interest in looking at women in picture windows and shit like that. Like, it's just.
I mean, because you can't go anywhere with those guys. They've got to stand out. I mean, because they have the haircuts. They're huge. And I mean, yeah.
He said, no, you come, it'll be fine. And he was right, because we're walking down the street, and I'm walking in between the Road Warriors, and no one was going to bother me.
Oh, my gosh.
Never been safer.
Man, they're our favorites. But I mean, Ric Flair. I mean, I've watched the 30 for 30 that they did on him, and I mean, he lived it. I mean, he really, when he did those promos. I mean, was it true? Did he really live the styling and profiling lifestyle all the time?
I would say so. Mm-hmm.
So he never really came out of character, or was he just really just being himself the whole time?
Well, now you're asking. Actually, what you're asking is who is the real Flair, and I don't know that anybody but Flair knows that. But yeah, he always was a partier. You know, always held up. You know, not that you couldn't get, you know, have a sincere conversation with him, you know, outside of the public view. But yeah, he was always on.
He was always on. Wow. Has there ever been anyone else that was always on like Ric Flair?
Not in that way. I mean, there are a lot of wrestlers who, you know, whose wrestling personas are low key and friendly. So that's what you're talking about, being brash and no,
yeah, being Ric Flair, being the Nature Boy. I mean,
how about Randy Savage? I heard if you saw him out, he was pretty much the Macho Man. Is that correct? Like voice and all.
I didn't really know him well,
okay,
or pretty much at all. He was with WCW for the last year or so that I still announced there, so I really didn't know him much about him at all.
The top headliners when you were with WCW were like Sting and Luger, right? I mean, those guys were legends. I mean, they were like at the prime of their careers.
Yeah, Steiner brothers.
The Steiner brothers. So Lex Luger and Sting. Do you have any memories of them that you'd like to share with us, Gary? I mean, because this is fascinating for us, man. I mean, we were little kids watching these guys.
You had Sting, you had Luger, Ron Simmons, Vader, Sid Vicious.
Ooh.
Great Muta, Four Horsemen.
Ooh.
You know, you had a lot of, you know, over the 6 years, you know, a lot of Barry Windham.
Yes. Magnum T. What about Magnum TA? He was from Virginia Beach.
That was before. He was an earlier guy. Yeah, him, Ronnie Garvin. They were younger. I mean, they were earlier 80s.
When I worked with, well, before I started with WCW, I worked with the NWA and did all their house shows in Baltimore and a lot of their house shows in Philly and a lot of their pay-per-views and clashes, their specials. And that's when I got to know, or, you know, I came in contact with Magnum.
How did you come up with your signature line? This is Sting. How did you come up with that?
Definitely one of my favorites.
If you were to boom just from beginning to end, if you were to boom Sting, you never knew what was going to come out because it closes your throat. So when you say this is, it gives you a running start to get to Sting.
Wow, it's fascinating.
Yeah, so it kind of like clears your throat.
Wow. Hey, can you coach us up on other little tricks that you used? I mean, you're a professional announcer. Was there anything else like that?
You know, really, I think my strength was, to wrap this up, I would say that my strength was my believability and my relationship with the fans.
Yes, sir.
And when I spoke, people listened and they believed what I said, even if what I said to them wasn't accurate. I mean, they wouldn't know the difference. For instance, if we were on the road and a main eventer was not there that was advertised, whatever I told them, you know, they believed me. So, you know, that was my strength, and that was, I think, what my value should have been to the promotion, to the promoter. He should have realized that. And many of them did, because I never went inquiring for work. I was just very fortunate based upon my performance and what promoters, you know, said about, you know, working with me, that Cappetta's, easy to deal with and gets the job done and it's believable. And so then I would get my next job. I would get my job on ESPN, and then I would get my job on WCW, and then Ring of Honor. And, it just one went from one to the other to the other. And I'm really proud of that. I didn't know anybody on the inside to pull me in and get a position that way. I like to think that it was on merit. And but the believability was my greatest attribute. And in some way, that answers the last question you asked me, but I don't remember what the question was.
I mean, it's that you're authentic, correct? I mean, you're genuinely who you are, and that's why you're believable?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, yes, as much as I could be, especially for the times.
Yes, sir.
As much as I could be. The ring announcer is the representative of the promotion that is most in touch physically, present with the fans. So you are the up close and personal representation.
Yes, sir.
And I think there's a great responsibility that comes with that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I love the story that you told on that epic podcast with JR, where Bill Watts was taking over a territory. Do you mind sharing that and just how, influential you were and how you came at him with the idea? And, he was smart enough to go with it. I thought it was brilliant. And it was such a good idea. Do you mind sharing that story with us?
We're going to do that for part 2.
Okay. Cool. Definitely.
Hey, I'm telling you, you're the best, Gary. Gary, is there anything else you would like to say to your fans that are watching or going to watch as we sign off here? And could you sign us off?
No, I'm, just, real thankful and blessed for the career that I've had. And I continue to go out and do guest ring announcing. And my stage show and personal appearances and conventions.
Yes, sir.
So, I just have a real good time with it. I still have a lot of friends that are active on the AEW and WWE rosters. So I keep in touch with what's going on.
Yes, sir.
And I like it.
But thank you very much for spending time with us, Gary, and hopefully we can get you back on. But you are the GOAT, and we just want to say thank you from Totem Pole Nation to you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Guys, I appreciate it.
Thank you, brother. Have a great day.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, go on Amazon, buy Bodyslams